Hey, it's Dave here, and we are going to talk about how hiatal hernias can cause heartburn and this acid sensation up in the chest area. So far in this series, we've really spoken about how chemical factors can cause heartburn, so too much acid splashing back up into the esophagus, H. pylori infections, food allergies, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, etc. We've spoken a little bit about the lower esophageal sphincter and how a weakening of that lower esophageal sphincter can allow those stomach contents to splash back up into the esophagus and cause heartburn. But in this particular video, I want to really focus on something that is a little bit different. I want to focus on the mechanics and structure of the breathing apparatus, particularly the diaphragm, and how that can actually create a bunch of upper gastrointestinal symptoms, and particularly heartburn and acid reflux. So in the left-hand diagram here, we have the esophagus at the top, and you'd be swallowing your food, and the food would come down the esophagus. The lower esophageal sphincter here would open, and the food would plop down into your stomach. The diaphragm is here in blue, okay? And on this left-hand diagram, everything is working perfectly okay. But if we contrast that with the right-hand diagram, what we can see is instead of the diaphragm being in the correct position and the stomach sitting below the diagram, entirely below the below the diaphragm, then on this one, you can see that a little pocket of the stomach has actually pushed above the diaphragm. And that is what they call a hiatal hernia. You can see the diaphragm is here, but there's a little pocket of the stomach pushed upwards. Now, when that happens, it can be extremely uncomfortable and it can be felt as heartburn. No amount of acid-lowering drugs or food changes or H. pylori medications or anything like that is likely to fix the problem if it's being caused by a hiatal hernia. And you can have different degrees of hiatal hernia. You can have very, very mild ones where only a really tiny amount of the stomach is pushed up, or you can have some pretty nasty ones where a significant pocket from the stomach has actually bulged up through the diaphragm. Why would that happen? Well, it typically happens when you have changes in your breathing patterns. For example, if you're stressed out and you are breathing up into your shoulders a lot instead of breathing nice and relaxed into your belly, that can tighten the diaphragm and start to cause a lot of these problems. When you're lifting heavy objects, doing the gardening, moving house, moving furniture around, picking your kids up, trying to pick the shopping up at the same time, all of those different types of things. Maybe even at the weight room where you're doing exercise that's supposed to be good for you, you might be accidentally creating some problems if you don't have your breathing patterns and your technique optimized. Coughing violently, sneezing, vomiting, anything that's violent in terms of kind of a movement is going to potentially affect the mechanics of the diaphragm as well. So it could be any one of those different causes potentially, and that might have happened years ago, so you can't even remember that it happened. Now, if you go to the doctor and they find that you have a hiatal hernia, what they'll usually tell you is, we can lower your stomach acid by using medications and reduce the symptoms, or we can do an operation to fix the hernia. But they won't tell you about some of the other things that you might be able to do to fix the hernia. I have witnessed people have manipulations by skilled therapists, osteopaths who practice things like visceral osteopathy, sort of holistically trained chiropractors. Anybody who's really good with their hands at manipulating parts of the body can oftentimes get in, manipulate the diaphragm and completely resolve these issues. So before you think about having operations, surgery and things like that from a medical perspective, it's worth contacting somebody in your area who markets themselves as a visceral osteopath or something similar to that. Now, unfortunately, I don't really know a whole heap of those people around the world. I know 2 or 3 people here in the UK who are really, really good, who I've seen myself and who my clients have had great benefit from seeing as well. So heartburn is not just a chemical issue. It can be related to the structures and the mechanics of the breathing apparatus, as we've seen. The stomach pushes up beyond the diaphragm and you get this hiatal hernia. So this is something to really be aware of if all else is failing for you, if you've tried changing your diet, if you've tried manipulating your acid levels, taking medications and all these different things, if none of that's working, it might be that you need to have somebody have a good look at the mechanics of your body and the structures involved. So I hope this has been a helpful video, and I will look forward to catching you on the next one. Thank you.